Hey everybody, welcome back to Warehouse Amps. Got a really cool project here. I just got back from Denver with it. It's kind of late at night, but I wanted to get the video started because I'm really excited about this one. This is a Super Six Reverb. So it's a 70s silver face Fender Super Reverb with 6 speakers in it. That's why the cabinet is so tall and weird looking. But it's in pretty rough condition. We're gonna do a full restoration on this guy because they're kind of rare, and I think it'll be good when it's all finished up. There's some weird stuff going on here, like some separation between the grill cloth and the speaker cabinet, so we may have to rebuild this baffle and get new. Definitely going to get some new grill cloth on here. This stuff is old and dirty and kind of wavy and loose, and I think that's maybe just because it's covering such a large distance, you know. But we could definitely make some improvements on there. And it looks like the faceplate is a little banged up as well. We got some dents and stuff. Maybe we can straighten that out. But all of the labeling is still there. Screen printing still there, nice and clear. So that's pretty awesome. The previous owner said that everything was working, but that perhaps there was some issues with the vibrato channel. Which we'll definitely want to have working because that's the cool channel. I mean, the normal is fine, but man, the vibrato channel is where it's at. So anyway, we're going to do full restoration. If that is exciting to you, then stay tuned and follow me through that entire process. Well, let's take a look at the inside of the Super Six Super Reverb amplifier. I can see that someone's been in here and done some good things. We do have a 3-wire power cord that's been installed correctly, which is great. You can see the primary, or the hot, I should say, is going directly to the fuse first and then to the switch. I'd love to see that. And then you've got the neutral going directly to the transformer. Yeah, so kudos there. The one thing they didn't do was they didn't wire back in this service outlet. Not sure why, but maybe we'll add that back in. And they also did not utilize this ground switch here, which we can use as a negative feedback interrupter. So we can turn off the negative feedback if we want. So we'll probably add that in. You can see we have some new capacitors in the power supply section over here, and also in the bias section, as well as new capacitors in a few other positions down the line. Coupling caps have been replaced. This amp was full of the white caps that everybody seems to hate, and I have no reason to disagree with them yet. This is just a little bundle from whomever worked on this last. Yeah, so you can see all of those white capacitors have come out, as well as, I believe that is the master. No, yeah, that might have been the original master volume. It's been replaced with this guy, which kind of sticks out quite a bit compared to the other knobs. Push-pull master. So we'll take this all apart and make sure that everything's screwed down and functioning the way it's supposed to. This particular amplifier also has the faceplate glued to the chassis, which is a drag. So once we pull all these knobs off, you'll see that the nuts are actually recessed, which makes them kind of hard to get to with a socket. And also, if they were these holes were smaller, you could just use all these knobs to hold down the faceplate. You wouldn't need to glue it, but it is glued. And so we're gonna have to take that off and apart to get it clean, and then also to fix, you can see there's like a bow happening across the front because the face of this has been impacted at some point. So we're gonna work on straightening that out as well with my specialized straightening tool. Other than that, everything looks pretty good, in good order here. Not seeing any big red flags other than some scorching happening. Tubes were obviously very hot in a couple of locations. So we'll do a very thorough job of tracking down all the voltages just to make sure that nothing is being over spiced. And then we will of course check all of these other components in here to make sure all the resistors are in value and that none of these blue molded capacitors are leaking any DC voltage. And yeah, so let's flip it over and take a look at the doghouse and all of the transformers. All right, here's the bottom side of the amplifier. We have a bias pot that someone has added, and then a balance. That's probably the hum balance for the 6-volt heater lines. We'll double check those to make sure that's actually what's going on there. And yeah, it's in fairly good shape down here. Everything looks pretty original. It's definitely original. This guy's a little sweaty. Maybe has been overheated a couple of times, and some of the wax and stuff from the inside is coming out. So keep an eye on that and make sure this transformer is doing what it's supposed to. Tube sockets look pretty good. Of course, we'll go through and clean them and tighten up all the pins. Someone has already labeled where all the tubes go. Super helpful. You know, sometimes you lose track. Let's pull off this doghouse and see what our filter capacitors are looking like. Wow, the original filter caps, Mallory's. Very nice quality stuff, but they're just probably reaching the end of their life right now. This amplifier is probably from 71 or 72. I'm gonna run down the date code here in a second, but yeah, that's probably about as much life as you can expect from these guys. Also, you can see they've gotten really hot at some point and stuck to the little insulation goo that Fender puts in here. That's why some of this is missing. So we're definitely going to redo these filter caps, and then we'll also double check the values of these resistors here to make sure they're within spec. Yeah, and as soon as I took it off, there was that smell, that like old amplifier smell. This is where it comes from. It's from these guys. So I'm gonna run down the date code on this real quick, so I can narrow down exactly how old this amplifier is, and I'll probably get a set of these coming to replace. But I'm also considering converting this amp into a tube rectifier instead of the solid state. I'm still just thinking about it, and I'll let you know what I come up with here in a little bit. Okay, the verdict's in. 606. It's kind of hard to read, it's a little grungy, but that's a 606, which means it's a Schumacher. So 1974, 29th week. Yeah, all of these look original. I'm not going to run the numbers on them because, you know, why bother? If they work, I'm sure they're going to be great. Also, I'm just draining out these filter capacitors and make sure there's nothing left in them before I pull them out and order some new ones. So stay tuned for that. All right, there we go. Happen to have all these capacitors laying around, so that's helpful. All of the resistors were in range. This guy, the 2.22, was a little high, but still close enough to be within that 10%. So I'm going to leave all of these in here. I'm sure they're going to work fine. Then I'll clean up and put the doghouse back on. Okay, well, we did have some components that were out of spec. Just some random resistors in there that were just a little too cooked. Primarily these 470 K resistors that were back here, they were originally wired in so that they were floating over the top here. This channel gets really, really hot when the tubes heat up. So just putting these out to the side is helpful so that they don't overheat. So I replaced all 4 of those on the 4 output tubes. And then we just had a few others just kind of here and there in the circuit. So now that we've got those all done, and I did wire in my negative feedback switch here so that you can turn it off or on depending on what you want. It's pretty easy to run. You just come out of the speaker output over to the switch, and then from the switch, camera, there we go, back into the circuit here. So that'll be functional once we fire it up. So now I'm going to go ahead and finish taking apart front panel and cleaning everything up, straightening this guy, and then of course I'll clean and tighten everything else, including the tube sockets and all the connectors in the back. I know that I've shown this in other videos, but I just thought I'd show it one more time just in case you haven't seen it yet. This is my face straightening bar. It's pretty simple, just has a couple of bolts that come through this piece of angle iron. You put it through, you know, one of these pots where the holes were. It's got a large washer and a nut on the back side. And this just gives you a nice big handle with which to pry on this and move it in and out to get it where you want it. Also, with the large washers, if there is maybe impact on a single one of these potentiometers and there's like a, you know, a low spot now, a ding in here, if you push this out the back, put this guy in there and then just tighten it up, it'll flatten everything out. So I'm just working my way across here. It's now the chassis is basically straight from here to here, and then I'll find another place, probably one of these jacks, to bring the center out a little more. And that should do it. Oh, also down at the bottom here, I have an even larger nut and bolt, and that is for this size hole. One other little fun tidbit about the Reverb tank and bag. The bag is double thick, which you don't see all the time, but on the inside is brown Tolex. So we have some remnants being used here. Got black on the outside, brown on the inside. Pretty fun stuff there. Also, let's see if you can see that a little better. There we go, brown. Also, the tank itself, it's in really, really nice shape. I don't think it's probably ever been out of that bag. It has this little rubber guy, this shock absorber on the top, because when it's in the bag and mounted, this is actually the side that was facing the cabinet, not per usual the cardboard side. So that's kind of interesting. I'll make sure it goes back in the same way, because I'm pretty sure this has not come out of the cabinet since it was installed at the factory. So there you go. All right, we got everything put back together. Faceplate cleaned up real nice. It's only missing a little bit of the screen printing, so that's awesome. A few of the tubes did not check out well, so we replaced those. All of the output tubes were in good shape, but the preamp tubes, we had a few bad ones in there, so got those all dialed in, and then I'm working on the bias right now. Trying to be between 20 and 30 on these tubes, but they're pretty varied. The tubes themselves look to be kind of old, so there's a couple of old RCAs and then a couple of not well labeled ones. Yeah, so I'll probably need to flip it over and just like double check that the voltages are even going to each individual tube. But it sounds good. And everything's, you know, pretty much within range here. The one thing, that first tube is like pretty low. The one thing I'm not digging right now is the tremolo on this guy. It's very fast. You can hear the, this is the fastest speed. Let me turn up the intensity all the way so you can really hear it. That's like super fast and not really usable for anything. And then the slowest speed is this. It's still pretty quick. So I think I'm gonna slow down the tremolo a little bit, see if we can get a little bit more mellow sound happening, because, you know, the basically beyond 4, get up into like here, that's just like too quick for tremolo, you know, like it becomes like kind of a novelty sound instead of something cool. So that'll be the next step. I'm gonna like double check the voltages on the output tubes and then slow down the tremolo, and we'll do another audio test after that. Hang tight. I wanted to go into a little more detail on the biasing of the Super Six and what I ended up doing there. You'll remember that I pointed out there were 2 pots on the chassis. One was labeled bias and one was labeled balance. And you can see here, this is the balance pot. And what it's actually doing is adjusting negative voltage to the grids of the output tubes. Okay, so we've got 2 pairs of tubes that are working in a push-pull. You know, they're out of phase with one another. And there are 2 different lines of negative DC bias voltage coming in. And by adjusting the balance knob, you can send more or less of that negative voltage to the tubes to control their bias, which is pretty clever. Yeah, and so that's what that balance label or balance knob does. The other pot in there that was labeled bias is actually the negative DC bias adjustment. Okay, so how much total negative current is available to these 4 tubes, and then the balance just determines if a little bit more or less goes to one set or the other. So in order to get these tubes working as best as I could, I was using the Bias Master tool to see what the milliamp output was on these tubes. Plate dissipation. So once I measured the 4 different tubes, I put the 2 tubes that were closest to one another in their respective sets. Okay, so I had a couple that were fairly low milliamp output. I put them together here, and then a couple that were a little higher, and I put them together here. Okay, so these 2 pairs of tubes were fairly closely matched. It would be ideal to get a matched 4 set of tubes for this amp down the road, but that's not really where I'm at today. So we're just gonna put 2 tubes together that are similar, and then I'm gonna use this, or I have used this balance adjustment to bring the milliamp output of the 2 sets as close together as possible. Okay, at the same time adjusting the negative bias voltage coming into the circuit, so that we ended up around 25, 26 milliamps of output for these tubes, which is sort of smack dab in the middle. 20 would be too cold, 30 would be too hot. So we ended up about 26 milliamps of output voltage across all 4 of these. They all ended up pretty dang close together. So that's a little more detail on this Super Six biasing. It's a little different than, you know, most of the other amps that I've seen before. And I have seen I mentioned that I thought this might be a hum balance, and I have seen that before across the heater, the 6-volt heater lines. That I have seen amps that have an adjustment for those two, so that you can achieve a little bit better balance. That was actually on an Ampeg amplifier that I saw that. Anyway, so hopefully that explains how I ended up biasing this amplifier. All right, so I'm experimenting with a couple of different capacitors in the tremolo circuit to slow it down. I've got a 0.047 in there right now, which is kind of big, but I'm thinking I might go with it. It slows the tremolo way down. So check this out. Here's the slowest speed. All right, I want to take that out first, and you can hear this is where we started. Okay, that's that. And then the next step up, I have another 0.01 I'm going to put in series. So here's what that sounds like. Pretty cool, pretty cool. And then let's try the 0.047, although this might be too slow. Yeah, you know what? Let's maybe let's use 2 of these 0.01s and see what that sounds like. Hold on a second. Okay, here's 2 of the 0.01s, so basically 0.02. I like that. Cool. So that's the slowest setting. Let's turn it up here so you can hear the range of speed. Here's the fastest. So it still gets pretty fast. And I'll slow it down to like the middle here. There you go. That's nice. And then, yeah, down in this 1 and 2 range. Ooh, that's real nice. Cool. So I think I'm going to install I wish I had a 0.02, but I'm out right now. So I'm going to install both of these 0.01s in there. Just right here, we're going to piggyback on top of that 0.01 disc that you can see when I go into the same eyelets to slow down the speed. All right, well, that's going to pretty much do it for the restoration part 1 of the Fender Super Six Reverb amp. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll tackle the cabinet. We're going to do a full re-Tolex on it and new grill cloth, which, spoiler alert, you can see here. And we'll build a new grill cloth baffle as well. But before we go, how about a little audio demonstration of the Fender Super Six now that it's all fixed up. I'll be using the shop guitar, the Telecaster with Fender custom shop pickups in the neck position. That's the standard or normal input. Everything at 5, halfway up. Now we're going to switch over to the vibrato channel and hear a little bit of that. Here's the vibrato channel with all the tone controls at 5 and about 3 on the input volume, master volume at 5. So much low end on this amp because of those 610 speakers. There's just a ton of sub coming out, which is awesome. Cool, let's hear some of that vibrato and reverb that we worked on. All right, here we are with reverb of 3 and vibrato speed of 3 with an intensity of 5. Here's a little more speed 5 on the vibrato, and intensity of 10. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video of redoing the Super 6 reverb from Fender. If you did enjoy it, please like and follow this page so you can see more videos in the future. I'm sure I'll have a lot of fun projects coming up, and stay tuned.